Yes guys, welcome back to the channel, and today we're talking about Julen Lopetegui and why I think he should be sacked by West Ham. Stay tuned as well because I'll be suggesting some other managers who I think should take over. Before we get into it though, don't forget to hit that like button as it really helps the video out. Subscribe to the channel as well, and without further ado, let's get straight into it. So before he was even in the job at West Ham, I never thought it would have been a good appointment, to be honest, because if you look at his run at Wolves and how disastrous that went, I just don't see how West Ham thought and this time was going to be any different, to be honest. He had huge backing at Wolves, you know, got the likes of Cunha, Max Kilman, Pedro Neto as well in that team, as well as so many signings that they got in under him, and it just never worked. You didn't really know what a play he had at Wolves, never really got his ideas across, and ended up only lasting 9 months in the job at Wolves. So for me, I don't see how when you look at that and then bring him into the club, I just don't see how they felt it would be any different. And it's been the same story at West Ham. You know, he's had huge investment in the summer, spent over 123 million, which is crazy, to be honest, for West Ham. West Ham were never known for spending that amounts of money, and obviously they had huge trust in him, but considering his track record, I don't see how they had trust in him, to be honest. Look at Wolves. You get signings like Carlos Soler, Max Kilman and Guido Rodriguez, who seem to be all hand-picked by Julen Lopetegui, because Soler, you know, Spanish national, may know a few bits about him. Max Kilman was at Wolves as well when Lopetegui was there, so obviously he must have had a say in that. And Guido Rodriguez as well, another Spanish-speaking player who has been in La Liga for many, many years at Real Betis. So you would have seen that those three signings would have been top of his list, and none of them have worked. None of them at all. Max Kilman has been a shell of the player he was at Wolves. He has been awful, to be honest. More on him later. Guido Rodriguez hasn't been great. You know, he's been subbed off numerous times by Lopetegui in the first 45 minutes, and yeah, he just hasn't worked out either. And Carlos Soler, it's been okay. He's probably been the best of the bunch, but even then, he's not been too good. Obviously, settling in takes time. He has shown glimpses, but for me, again, it's just not been good enough. Along with signings like Fulkrug, Somerville and Wan-Bissaka, who the latter, Wan-Bissaka, has been their best player this season. He's been really, really improved going forward. Seems to have got sort of a goal threat about him. He's got 2 goals in the league. And has looked really good, really good defence, as he always is. You know, a top tackler, one of the best tacklers in the world, I think. And yeah, it was that's probably the best signing that they've done. Apart from that, Somerville, he's shown flashes, but not really convinced by him at the moment. Fulkrug has barely featured. Don't know what's happened to him in recent months. But he seems to have been either been injured or just not featured. And yeah, again, it's more money down the drain. And if you're not going to these players, if you're not going to, you know, show faith in them and get the best out of them ultimately, because that's what he's not been doing. He's not been getting the best out of these players that the club has spent huge money on. So yeah, it all falls in the manager's lap, to be honest, because again, some of these signings are hand-picked and they haven't performed, so it has to fall back on the manager. But he's not a bad manager. You know, we've seen what he can do at Sevilla. Obviously won the Europa League with them and made them a really, really solid La Liga side. You know, qualified Champions League a few times, obviously won the Europa League. He was perfect at Sevilla. And ever since he's sort of transitioned from the Liga to the Premier League, he has struggled. And I'm not too sure why that is. Maybe it's just the difference in football. I'm not too sure. But he just hasn't lived up to the expectations that people held him so highly at Sevilla, and now he's at West Ham. And Wolves. It just hasn't translated. And looking at results, you know, they've lost 1 to Spurs away from home, lost 3-0 away from home to Forest as well, where they only registered 2 shots on target, and lost 5-2 at home to Arsenal. They were 4-0 down inside 36 minutes, which was embarrassing. You know, every time Arsenal went forward in that game, they looked like they were going to score. Obviously got the 2 goals back, but it was such a poor performance, and sort of maybe the beginning of the end from there. Also got a 0 draw with Everton at home, which if you're spending the kind of money you are with the players you have compared to Everton, you know, you should be wiping the floor with him, to be honest, and he just wasn't. 0-0 in that game. And the worst one of the lot was definitely the one lost to Leicester away from home. They got 30 shots in total, I think, the most they've ever had in the league. And they just couldn't put it all in the back of the net. Obviously they did it once with Fulkrug, but they just didn't look great, especially at the back. You know, Max Kilman, Edson Alvarez, Mavropanos all had a horrible game. Max Kilman especially. Such a poor performance at the back from Max Kilman, giving away passes constantly. He looked sluggish, and he didn't look like he wanted to be there, to be honest. And I've never seen a defender just give up the way he has sometimes, especially on that third goal. Patson Daka won. Obviously, Patson Daka had fresher legs, but all he had to do was one little body feint, and that was it. He had a goal to aim for, and he put it in the near post. So yeah, it was just really poor performance from Max Kilman, and I think he's got to put his hands up for some of the goals in that game, to be honest. Just wasn't good enough at all. And again on the sideline as well, Lopetegui very, very angry, especially in the Arsenal game as well. Both of them games, he just seems like he's getting more and more frustrated over the weeks. And yeah, for me, he looks like he's mentally checking out. I've heard multiple reports as well that West Ham are giving Lopetegui one more game to save his West Ham career. It's against Wolves of all teams. The former employers that sacked him not only 2 seasons ago, he now has to beat them in order to keep his job at West Ham. You can't write this stuff, to be honest. All eyes are going to be on that game. West Ham fans, let me know what you think about it. If you think it's time for Lopetegui to go, or if it is the judgment day on the weekend. So let me know in the comments down below what you think about this, because personally, Lopetegui I think has got to go. And there's been many managers linked with a role at West Ham if Lopetegui does get sacked. You've got the likes of Sergio Conceição, who used to manage FC Porto, Graham Potter as well, obviously former Chelsea and Brighton manager, and Roger Schmidt as well, the former Benfica manager. So 3 big names, to be honest, linked with a job. West Ham do need a big name to take over this side, because there's a lot of big players, a lot of money spent, and you need someone who's been experienced in that field, who knows what it takes to deal with these big names. And for me, Sergio Conceição, FC Porto he's managed for years, got into quarter of the Champions Leagues regularly with FC Porto, won a few titles in Portugal obviously, and I feel like he's got the pedigree to come in and really make a difference. Graham Potter, I don't think it kind of didn't work out at Chelsea, which had a similar situation with West Ham. Not so much on the biggest scale, but they've got a lot of players in who need to settle in, which is similar to what he had at Chelsea, and it didn't go to plan, to be honest. So maybe West Ham is too much of a bigger step for Graham Potter, because he's been so much time out of the game. And Roger Schmidt, I don't really know too much about, to be honest. I know he's been a former Benfica manager, but for me, it's got to be Sergio Conceição, because he's got that pedigree, he's got that sort of instinct to know what it takes to get over the line in games and ultimately do good in Europe. If West Ham, obviously they won the Conference League not too long ago, if they want to be challenging for those sorts of trophies again, you need a manager who is known for doing that, and Sergio Conceição is that man. So for me, if I was to sack Lopetegui, Sergio Conceição would be the man I'd bring in to take over. That is that for that video, guys. If you did enjoy, don't forget to hit that like button, as it really helps the video out. Subscribe to the channel as well, and let me know in the comments down below if Lopetegui should be sacked, if Judgment Day is going to be on the weekend, and also who you would get in. Obviously, I throw 3 suggestions out there, but if you've got any more suggestions, let me know in the comments down below, because I'll be really intrigued. And yeah, we'll catch you in the next one. And